Hey everyone, and welcome to our deep dive today, all about agreement intelligence.
Sounds exciting.
It is. We're going to be looking at excerpts from this ebook called the Agreement Intelligence Lifecycle, and basically kind of figure out how can we think about contracts in a whole new way.
Yeah.
And the big question here is, what if your contracts were more than just like these static files, right? What if they were like these living assets that could help you make better decisions?
Exactly. That's what we're talking about, moving beyond the old idea of CLM,
Yeah.
Yeah, contract lifecycle management.
Right.
You remember those systems? They required so much manual input, and honestly, they just felt like they were making your life harder.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets, folders, like just finding the right contract was a nightmare, let alone getting any useful information out of it.
Yeah.
And then all the manual data entry.
Ugh, don't even get me started.
Seriously. Who has time for that?
Nobody. That's where agreement intelligence comes in. We're using AI to unlock the data inside these contracts and make them actually do something for you.
Okay, so it's like we're sitting on this gold mine of information, but we need the right tools to mine it.
That's a perfect analogy.
I like it. But so before we get too deep into it, can you just give us like a high-level overview of what this agreement intelligence lifecycle actually is?
Sure. Basically, it takes you from just storing contracts to actually strategically using them. And it's broken down into 6 stages. So first, you've got to import your documents, then you extract the metadata, then you can search and filter through it, then you export reports from it, and then you can set up all these automated workflows, and then you can integrate it with other systems.
Okay, so it's like moving from just reacting to things to being proactive.
Yeah.
But let's take it step by step. So you said the first stage is importing documents. What exactly does that involve?
Well, think of it as like a central hub where all your contracts live. No more digging through emails or file cabinets.
That sounds like a dream come true. But is it like a really complicated migration to get everything in there?
Not at all. Many platforms have like a drag and drop interface, so it's super easy to import everything. Doesn't even matter what file format they're in.
Okay, so we've got all of our contracts in one place, which is awesome. But how do we actually extract the important data from them? You mentioned metadata before. Can you just explain what that is?
Yeah. Metadata is basically data about data. So it's the key information that describes what's in the contract. Like, for example, in a vendor agreement, the metadata might include the vendor's name, the value of the contract, the start and end date, and any other important details.
Got it. So instead of reading through every single contract and pulling out that information, we can use AI to do it for us.
Exactly. And it does it way faster than any human ever could.
Okay, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, how does the AI actually do that?
It uses something called natural language processing, or NLP. It basically allows the AI to read the contract and understand the context so it can identify the key data points.
So it's like the AI is this super efficient contract analyst. But what happens if the AI makes a mistake? Do we have to go back and fix everything?
Well, AI isn't perfect yet, but the platforms are designed to minimize those errors. And humans can easily review and correct any mistakes.
Okay, good. That makes me feel better. So we've got the metadata. It's accurate. What can we actually do with it? How does it actually help our organization?
That's where the next stage comes in, searching and filtering. Now that you have all this organized data, you can easily find any contract based on whatever criteria you want.
So no more scrolling through pages and pages of legal jargon?
Nope. Want to see all your contracts with auto-renewal clauses? Couple of clicks and you got it. Need to find all contracts with a specific vendor that are ending soon. Easy. It's really powerful.
I can see that. But we're not just searching for fun, are we? What are some real tangible results we can get from this?
That takes us to stage 4, exporting reports. Imagine generating reports on like upcoming renewals or vendor performance or compliance risks, anything you need.
So we can base decisions on actual data instead of guessing.
Exactly. You can track trends and really make data-driven decisions that will help your organization.
This is starting to sound pretty good, especially for CFOs.
It is. And in the next part, we'll actually talk about how this can help different teams in the CFO's office.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But before we move on, can we talk about automating workflows? What does that mean?
It means taking all those manual tasks that take forever, things like approvals and notifications, and basically putting them on autopilot.
So we're streamlining everything, saving time, and reducing errors. But how hard is it to actually implement this? Is there a big learning curve?
Most platforms are designed to be pretty user-friendly. They have simple interfaces and pre-built workflows so you can get started really quickly.
So we're not talking about months of training and setup.
No, not at all. You can be up and running in just a few days.
That's great news. But I have to ask, with all this AI, is there a chance we might miss important details that a human would catch?
It's a good question. And that's why we still need human oversight. Agreement intelligence isn't about replacing humans, it's about helping them. The AI does the tedious stuff, and humans can focus on the things that need critical thinking.
Okay, I like that. It's like a partnership.
Exactly. And that brings us to the last stage, integrations.
So this is where we connect agreement intelligence with other systems, right? But how do we know which integrations are the most important?
You want to start with the systems that are most important to your teams, things like your CRM and ERP.
So we're being strategic about it. Can you give us an example of how an integration might work?
Sure. Imagine your agreement intelligence platform is connected to your CRM. So your sales team can see when contracts are up for renewal and reach out to clients proactively. Or your finance team can have real-time access to all the financial data in the contracts so they can make accurate forecasts. There are so many possibilities.
This is really starting to paint a picture of how agreement intelligence can impact a whole organization. And I'm really interested to hear how it can help the CFO's office specifically.
Me too. We'll dive into that in the next part.
Okay, so everyone, stay tuned for part 2, where we'll be talking about all the benefits for the CFO's office. All right, so we're back and ready to dive into how agreement intelligence can really make a difference for the CFO's office.
Yeah, it's amazing how it can impact every team in different ways and really just bring everything together.
Right.
Let's start with the finance team, those number crunchers. I mean, they're constantly dealing with budgets and forecasts, trying to keep everything on track.
Yeah, I can only imagine the pressure they're under. So how can agreement intelligence actually help them?
Well, imagine no more manual data entry for all those contract financials.
That sounds pretty good already.
Right. With agreement intelligence, all that important information, like the payment terms, the milestones, the renewal dates, it's all automatically extracted so they have real-time insights. That means better forecasting, tighter budgets, and they can control costs way better.
So they can actually be proactive instead of always trying to catch up. But what about accuracy? We talked about how AI isn't perfect. What if there are errors in the financial data?
That's where the human element comes in. The platforms allow for review and validation of the data so someone can double-check everything. And because all the financials are centralized, it makes audits so much easier.
Okay, so that takes care of a lot of the headaches for the finance team. But what about operations? How does agreement intelligence fit into what they do?
Well, operations is all about efficiency, right?
Right.
And with agreement intelligence, they have instant access to everything they need, like contract obligations, service level agreements, you name it, so they can plan resources better, make sure projects run smoothly, and prevent any bottlenecks.
So no more frantic searches for contract details or last-minute scrambles to meet deadlines.
Exactly. They have full visibility and control. Let's say a vendor is late with the delivery, boom. Operations can quickly pull up the contract, see what the terms are, and take action right away.
That's a huge advantage in today's world where everything moves so fast. Now, we can't forget about procurement. They're always on the hunt for savings. How does agreement intelligence help them out?
Procurement can really use this technology to analyze vendor performance, find those cost-saving opportunities, and really streamline how they do sourcing. Imagine being able to instantly compare different vendors, see how they're performing based on what you agreed on, and even know when it's time to negotiate.
So they can make decisions based on actual data, not just gut feelings.
Exactly. Plus, they get alerts for upcoming renewals so they can be proactive about renegotiating or finding new vendors if they need to, always getting the best deal.
So we have finance with better insights, operations running smoothly, and procurement saving money. This is starting to sound like a dream team for any CFO. But what about the legal team? Don't they get nervous about AI taking over contracts?
You'd think so, right? But actually, legal teams are often the biggest fans of this technology. It makes their jobs easier, reduces risk, and helps them collaborate better with other teams.
I'm curious to hear more about that. How does it specifically benefit legal operations?
Well, think about all the time they spend reviewing contracts. Agreement intelligence can automatically flag anything that looks risky, highlight inconsistencies, and even suggest language based on your legal guidelines.
So they don't have to go through every single word with a fine-tooth comb.
Nope. They can focus on the more complex stuff that requires human judgment. And because everything is centralized, they can easily find precedents and make sure everything is compliant with your policies.
Okay, so it really does benefit the whole CFO's office, from finance to legal. But what's the big takeaway here? What should our listeners remember?
I think the key is that agreement intelligence is more than just automating things or making things easier. It's really about changing the way companies think about contracts.
So moving from reactive to proactive, from gut feelings to data-driven decisions.
Exactly. It gives every team in the CFO's office what they need to make smarter decisions, improve their processes, and get better results for the entire organization.
That's a powerful message. But are there companies that are actually doing this successfully? Can we see it in action?
Absolutely. The ebook has some great case studies showing how real companies have benefited from agreement intelligence.
Perfect. I love a good story. Let's hear about some of those case studies and see how this is actually working in the real world.
Okay, let's start with PAAY. They're a leader in secure payment solutions. They're in a really regulated industry and they're growing fast, so contracts are a big deal for them.
Yeah, I bet they have tons of contracts to deal with. What were their biggest challenges before they started using agreement intelligence?
Well, they had all the classic problems, disorganized documents, different versions floating around, and they were always scrambling to keep up with renewals. It was taking a lot of time away from their core business.
Sounds like they were drowning in paperwork. So how did agreement intelligence help them? What kind of impact did it have?
Well, first of all, they were able to negotiate sales agreements 40% faster. That means they can close deals quicker and potentially get ahead of the competition.
40%, that's huge. But did they see improvements in other areas too, like efficiency and compliance?
Oh, yeah, for sure. One of the biggest wins was just being more efficient because of automation. They didn't have to manually track document versions or worry about renewals anymore.
So less busy work, more time for the important stuff. But what about their bottom line? Did they actually save money?
They did. By getting everything organized and streamlined, they eliminated all that manual data entry and reduced the risk of making costly mistakes. Plus, they were able to negotiate better deals with vendors because they had a clear view of all the contract terms.
So it's not just about saving time, it's about saving money too. That's a pretty compelling story. But what about other industries? Can you give us an example of how this works in a field like construction, where contracts are notoriously complicated?
Absolutely. The ebook talks about Yates Construction. They're a major player in the industry, so they deal with a ton of contracts for subcontractors, suppliers, everything. Their projects are complex with tight timelines and lots of regulations, so managing those contracts effectively is crucial for them.
Yeah, construction is all about tight margins and deadlines. I can imagine they were buried in paperwork before they implemented agreement intelligence. How did it impact their bottom line?
They actually saved a lot of money. Think about it. They have tons of administrators working on multiple projects, so just finding, updating, and organizing contracts was taking up a lot of their time.
It's amazing how all those little tasks can add up to so much wasted time and money.
Exactly. And by centralizing everything and streamlining the workflows, Yates was able to cut down on that document handling time and save thousands of dollars every month.
That's a big win. But what about the other challenges we talked about? Like accessing documents from different locations, making sure they're compliant, and managing risk? Did agreement intelligence help them with those things too?
For sure. Yates has projects all over the place, so they needed a way to make sure everyone, from project managers to on-site teams, could easily access the contracts. Agreement intelligence made that possible. Everyone had real-time access from wherever they were.
So no more waiting for someone to email the right version or digging through files on a job site.
Exactly. They could communicate better, avoid delays, and everyone was on the same page.
That makes a big difference. But what about compliance and risk management? Those are huge in construction.
You're right. Missing a deadline in construction can be really costly. Yates was able to use agreement intelligence to keep track of all the important deadlines like renewals, insurance terms, and regulatory stuff. No more missed deadlines or scrambling to catch up.
That peace of mind is worth a lot.
Yeah.
So they were able to tackle document access, compliance, and risk management. Pretty impressive. But I'm curious about one more case study that I think our listeners, especially those focused on regulations, will find really interesting. It's the one about Leo Vegas.
Ah, yes. They're a big name in online gaming, which means they're dealing with a ton of regulations. They have brands all over the world, each with their own licensing rules. It's super complex.
Right. Their success depends on being able to navigate all those regulations. What were some of the specific challenges they faced before using agreement intelligence?
Well, they were basically doing everything manually, trying to extract key data from contracts and keep track of important clauses. And without a central system, it was incredibly time-consuming and inefficient to do risk assessments or make strategic decisions. It was creating bottlenecks all over the company.
I can't imagine trying to manually analyze hundreds of contracts to make sure they comply with laws in different countries. That sounds like a recipe for disaster.
It was, and that's where Agreement Intelligence stepped in and made a huge difference. One of the key features they used was the ability to create custom properties.
Okay, can you explain what those are and how they helped Leo Vegas?
Custom properties are like tags or categories that you can create to highlight specific things in your contracts that are important to your business. So for Leo Vegas, they were able to tag things like payment terms, change of control provisions, and market applicability. And this allowed them to take a process that used to take weeks and do it in an afternoon.
From weeks to an afternoon. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like magic. But how did those custom properties give them better visibility and insights?
By tagging contracts with specific brands and locations, they could see their global operations much more clearly. They could generate detailed reports and find important information in just a few clicks. It was a game changer for them.
So no more digging through endless files. They could finally use their contract data to make informed decisions. What about compliance and risk management? Did they see improvements there as well?
Absolutely. Compliance is everything in online gaming. Agreement Intelligence allowed them to stay ahead of the game. They could easily track things like change of control provisions and termination clauses to make sure they were meeting all the licensing requirements in every market.
So less risk, more peace of mind. But it's not just about avoiding problems, right? It's about being able to grow and take advantage of new opportunities.
Exactly. By streamlining their compliance tracking, they freed up time and resources to focus on expanding their business.
These case studies are really inspiring. They show how agreement intelligence can transform how companies handle contracts. And I'm sure our listeners are eager to learn how they can implement these ideas in their own organizations.
Well, that's a perfect transition to the last part of our deep dive, where we'll talk about some best practices for implementing agreement intelligence.
Okay, so we've talked about what agreement intelligence is, and we've seen how it's working for other companies. Now, the big question is, how do we actually make it happen? How do we implement it?
Right, because it was something to understand it, but actually putting it into practice, that's the real challenge. Luckily, the ebook has some great tips on how to do that.
Perfect. So let's break it down. What are some of the most important things to remember when we're getting started with agreement intelligence?
One of the biggest mistakes I see is people trying to do too much at once. They want to change everything overnight, which can be overwhelming.
Yeah, don't boil the ocean, right? It's better to start small and build from there. But how do you even choose where to start?
You need to find one or two things that will have a big impact but are also manageable, something that aligns with your company's goals. For example, if you're always missing renewal deadlines, you could start by automating that process for your most important contracts.
Okay, so start small, focus on the high-impact areas. What else is important?
Getting everyone on board. You need buy-in from the key people in your organization, and the best way to do that is to show them how it works, not just talk about it.
So like a demo. Let them see how easy it is to find information or set up those reminders.
Exactly. Once they see the potential, they'll be much more likely to support it.
Makes sense. But what about the technical side of things? Is it complicated to set up? Do we need a bunch of IT people involved?
Not really. Most of the platforms are designed to be user-friendly. They have things like pre-built workflows and tools that you can use right away.
So it's not like those old clunky systems that take months to customize.
Nope. You can be up and running pretty quickly, which means you start seeing the benefits sooner.
That's always good news. But even with a user-friendly system, people still need to learn how to use it right. How do we make sure everyone knows what they're doing?
Training is definitely key, but keep it focused. Teach people the most important features first, like how to search for metadata, set up filters, and use those automated workflows.
So don't overwhelm them with too much information at once. Just the essentials to get them started.
That's right. The goal is to get them comfortable using the platform so they can see how it can help them in their everyday work.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, we talked before about integrations, connecting agreement intelligence with other systems. Any advice on how to approach that?
Think about which systems are most crucial for your teams. Things like your CRM or ERP. Those are the ones you want to connect first to get the most impact.
So strategic integrations, not just connecting everything for the sake of it.
Exactly. And remember that this isn't a one-time thing. You need to keep refining the process, get feedback from your team, and make adjustments as you go along. It's about continuous improvement.
So it's a journey, not a destination.
That's a great way to put it.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about what agreement intelligence is, why it matters, and how to make it work. But as we wrap up, I want to leave everyone with one final thought. The power is in your hands.
And what do you mean by that?
Your contract data is incredibly valuable. And with agreement intelligence, you have the tools to unlock that value and transform the way your business operates. It's time to stop seeing contracts as just pieces of paper and start seeing them as powerful assets that can help you grow, reduce risk, and achieve your goals.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So there you have it. Go explore the possibilities of agreement intelligence. You won't regret it. Thanks for joining us today.